Hey guys, welcome to my channel. My name is Leanne, and in today's video I am going to be sharing with you some eggnog recipes. So this isn't a recipe to make eggnog, although I am planning to try that, and if I do and it works, there will be a video on that too. But this video is just recipes using eggnog. So the first recipe is for French toast, and I do this every year. I'm gonna show you how that's done. Super easy. Let's get into the first recipe because I'm hungry and I'm gonna be eating these. Okay, so I've actually done with this with nothing but the eggnog, dipping the bread in the eggnog alone and doing it that way, but I am going to be doing it with an egg this time, and you're basically going to be using, you're basically going to be using the eggnog in place of the milk that you would normally use for French toast. I do not measure, but I just kind of go for the consistency that I'm used to. I'm going to add in some nutmeg. Okay, so I am letting my pan heat up right now, and when that is ready, we will go ahead and start the French toast. I don't think you need a whole lot of explanation as far as cooking this French toast. Just dip the bread and fry it up in the pan. If you've never made French toast before, that's all there is to it. And this just made 6 pieces of French toast, but obviously you can just increase the amount for however much you need to make. And I know this is barely even counts as a recipe because there's really nothing to it, but I love the eggnog flavor in the French toast for this. It's super simple and really fun to do this time of year. So that is the finished product, and then I just cooked up some ham and made myself a nice tasty breakfast. But yeah, that's it for this recipe, and we'll get into the next one. Well, for this next recipe, I'm going to be making some eggnog fudge, and I've never made this before, but it sounded really good. I will include a link in the description box below for the original recipe, but as is usual for me, I am deviating from that recipe because there's a couple ingredients that either I don't have and I don't feel like it's worth getting, or that I think I can substitute fine. So I will include that link, but I will also show you what I'm doing, and I'll let you know how it comes out. So here are the ingredients that the recipe calls for. It calls for 2 cups of sugar, a half a cup of butter, 3/4 cup of eggnog, 10.5 ounces of white chocolate bars chopped into small pieces. So this is what I'm going to use because I needed this for some other things I'm making. And this is 24 ounces, so I won't be using all of this. The recipe calls for a half a teaspoon of freshly grated nutmeg, but I'm just going to use a little bit of ground nutmeg, 7 ounces of marshmallow cream, and then the recipe does call for a half a teaspoon of rum extract, and I do not have that, and I did not want to buy that for just one recipe, so I feel like I can probably do it without it. I'm going to use my meat thermometer instead of a candy thermometer, and I think it will work fine. We're going to find out. And then the recipe calls for an 8x8 or a 9x9 pan, and it says to line it with tin foil and coat with butter. I use my coconut oil cooking spray, and then I have a saucepan. So I'm just going to be chopping up the chocolate that I'm using. I'm using the almond bark and just cutting out what I needed because I didn't need this whole entire package. I suppose you could use white chocolate chips too, I don't know. But this was actually really easy to chop up. It sometimes looks like I'm struggling a little bit, but I was just trying to not push down too fast because I didn't want chocolate to go flying everywhere. But this was really easy to cut up, and you do want to do this ahead of time because once you start things on the stove, you have to really kind of babysit it, stay on top of it so things don't burn, and it just there's really just no break once you start. So get that done ahead of time. And now I'm just putting the butter, the eggnog, and then 2 cups of sugar in the pan. This seems like crazy to me because 2 cups of sugar is a lot, and eggnog is also sweet, but just following the recipe, and I guess fudge is obnoxiously sweet, so it's just fine. But we're gonna just put that in, and you want to bring that to a boil, but stir that constantly. So really, once you start this, you wanna just stay on top of it. You wanna melt it down and bring it to a boil. So once it gets to a boil, you want to let it go for 8 to 10 minutes. And I would say mine did take about 10 minutes. But until it gets to 234 degrees Fahrenheit. So here I am checking the temperature, and once it got to the temperature I needed, you're going to turn off the burner and immediately remove it from heat. So I moved it to another burner because of course the burners stay hot even after they are turned off. And then you want to begin adding in the white chocolate. You want to do this immediately. We're going to melt that in. I did make a mess with this. It would have been probably good if I added the chocolate to like a measuring cup that I could have just poured it in, but whatever. I'm just adding the chocolate in. As you can see, this is going everywhere. So it's a good thing that burner had been off. But we're just going to add all of the chocolate in, and we're going to stir and melt that completely. And then we're going to add in the nutmeg. And then once that is combined, you're going to add in the marshmallow cream, and then that's where you also would have added in the rum extract, which I skipped because I didn't have it. And you're just going to mix this really well until everything is fully combined. So I did some stirring, and then I kind of did some folding just to make sure I was getting everything up from the bottom. Once that is well combined, you're going to just pour this into your pan. And I did sprinkle a little nutmeg on top just for garnishing to make it pretty. And then you can just let it cool at room temperature, but it says you can also speed it up by putting it in the refrigerator, and that is what I did. Once the fudge is cooled down, I just took it out of the refrigerator, and I am just cutting it up into bite-sized pieces, and then we're gonna go ahead and give it a try. Okay, so I'm going to try the fudge. If I was going to be serving this, I would show you a picture of this really pretty laid out on a plate, but I'm gonna stick this in a bag in the freezer, and that way it's ready to go for the next Christmas gathering, Christmas party that I have that I need to bring something, or if I'm having people over, I will pull this out. But for now, I'm gonna put it in the freezer, but not until after I take a bite. Guys, this is good. I suggest you make this. Okay, so for my final eggnog recipe, I wanted to make some eggnog frosting, but first I need to make some cookies to put that frosting on, and I decided to go for a ginger snap. We love these cookies. They are a grain-free cookie, so if that's something that you need, this might be a good option for you. I'm sure the eggnog frosting we're gonna make would be good on a variety of other cookies, but I just kind of, when I was thinking about the eggnog frosting, the first thing that popped into my mind was like a spicy ginger snap cookie. So these are a crispy cookie. They're not a chewy cookie, which typically is what I would go for, but when I think of ginger snaps, I think of like a more firm cookie. So we're gonna do that, and then we'll get into the frosting. So I'm gonna start out by using my hand mixer to beat together the butter and coconut sugar, and then we're gonna add in 1 egg, some maple syrup, some molasses, vanilla extract, and then we're going to mix that together again, and then we will move on to our dry ingredients in a separate bowl. And I like to sift my dry ingredients together because just some of them have clumps in them, so I just like to do it this way. So we're going to do our tapioca flour, 2 tablespoons of the coconut flour, baking powder, baking soda, a pinch of sea salt, ginger, cinnamon, and allspice. And then we're going to slowly incorporate the dry ingredients into the wet ingredients at a low speed, making sure we scrape the sides and get all of the dry ingredients mixed together. And then the recipe says to let your dough rest for at least 2 minutes to check the consistency, and if needed, you can add 1 more tablespoon of coconut flour. You want this dough to be sticky, not really like a batter, and it needs to be, of course, scoopable. So I did add all 3 tablespoons of coconut flour all together in mine. And then you're gonna do about 1 tablespoon worth of dough per cookie, and just know that you wanna leave plenty of room in between because as you can see, they will spread out quite a bit, and you wanna bake them at 325 for 10 minutes. I did mine closer to 12 minutes, and then let them cool on the rack for like a minute or 2, or on the pan rather, before you move them to the rack. That always works better for me. And there you have the cookies. We've eaten these by themselves, but this time we are going to make some eggnog frosting to put on top of them. So let's get into that. So I'm just pouring in 1 cup of eggnog to 1 tablespoon of melted butter and mixing that together. And then we're going to begin adding the powdered sugar. The recipe calls for 3 pounds of powdered sugar, which seemed obnoxious to me, but I can see how you would use that much. I would say I use closer to about 2 pounds, but you're just going to add in 1 cup at a time and mix it well each time, and just want to go until you get the consistency you're looking for. The more powdered sugar you have, the stiffer the icing is going to be. So again, I used probably about 2 pounds of powdered sugar. This left me with quite a bit of icing, which may be more than you would need, or maybe it's exactly what you would need. It's definitely more than I need, but I will find uses for it, no worries. But probably for someone who's doing a lot of baking, this would be perfect. So just go until you get the consistency that you are looking for. So I'm just icing my ginger cookie, and I'm just doing one for me to test for the video. I did not do up a whole plate or anything. I'm going to store the icing and the cookies separately just for my purposes, but then just garnish with a little bit of ginger just because it's pretty. I'm going to give it a try. It's really good. I definitely like it on the ginger cookie. It helps balance out the sweetness. I'm actually not normally an icing person. Like, I don't love cakes. I love my sweets, but I don't really love cakes. I don't like a lot of icing and frosting, but I thought this would be fun, and it is really, really good. For me personally, maybe not for other people, it would be too sweet on, I think, like a sugar cookie, but it's perfect on something like this. So that is going to wrap up my eggnog recipes as well as the ginger cookie recipe. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, please give it a thumbs up. And don't forget to hit that red subscribe button below and the notification bell next to it. All that does is make sure that you get notified when I post future videos. So if you want to see my future ones, make sure you do that. Thanks so much for watching, and I'll see you next time.